You okay? Yeah, great, thanks. Where are we? Just make sure we get the right, so many meetings this week. Cabinet, 18th of April, and we'll open the Cabinet today with apologies for absence. And we've got Michael Payne and Linda Pearson. That's right, okay. So we're straight through there. Then on page 5 to 7, we've got the approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on 28th of March 24. So I'll move those. We agreed on those. Declarations of interests. Undeclared. No. All right, thank you. And forward plan, which we just need to note, I think, pages 9 to 15. So if there's any comments. There are none there. We're going in for the record here. Right, we'll move on to item 5, recommendations. Oh, sorry, did we vote on that one, that last one? We did vote, didn't we? Speeding through, page 9. Yeah, notes forward plan, that's it. We agreed. Yeah, done. And item 5, page 17. So that is the community asset transfer at Willerton Avenue Community Centre, which is a long time coming, and thanks to everybody for the patience. But I think we've got there now, and it's. Do you want to say anything? Anybody?
Lance.
Where is it, Lance? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. So I bring this report forward to seek Cabinet approval for the community asset transfer of Willerton Avenue Community Centre to Gedling Play Forum. So this will be by way of a 99-year full repairing lease, and the report also seeks to authorise the Chief Executive to approve the terms of any lease as well.
And we've still got the freehold, haven't we? We retain the freehold on these.
Yeah, we'll be offering them a long-term lease.
Yeah, but we retain as a.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you.
So. Cabinet be aware that we've got a community asset transfer policy which we adopted in 2015, and really that policy provides us with a framework where we can assess the viability of an asset, the viability of any community organisation want to take on an asset, and also helps to determine the legal process and framework and any agreement we might want to put in place around asset transfer. So in accordance with the policy, any organisation wanting to take on responsibility for an asset needs to submit an application to the council and also comply with principles such as appropriate consultation with stakeholders, making sure they've got the relevant policies and insurances in place around building management, and also have a robust business plan in place. So Gedling Play Forum submitted a submission in accordance with the policy in March 2022. As a result, the council undertook a consultation in January and February 2023 with the community as in line with the asset transfer policy. We received one response to that consultation, which was a positive response, and that can be found on Appendix A of the report. And during that period, we also undertook a thorough assessment in line with the policy's principles of the Gedling Play Forum's application. So this again was to look at the viability of the building for transfer, also looking at inequalities impact assessment as well, and also reviewed the Play Forum submission in full, particularly looking at their financial planning, the links with our own Gedling plan priorities in terms of their service delivery into the future, and also to sense check, if you like, their resilience as an organisation to take on the long-term lease. So part of the process is to establish a transition plan, and that can be found in the appendices, and really that's just a collaborative plan where we work with a Play Forum in terms of the handover of the building. The business plan, which we assessed from the Play Forum, sets out a number of intentions. One is to continue to provide a creative resource centre and scrap store on site, deliver family play activities at community events, provide activities and workshops for local organisations around creative play, offer group support, which includes access to the scrap store and other associated services at the community centre, offer numerous volunteering opportunities for the community, and also provide meeting space for partnerships and groups in need. One of the things we need to consider is the council's obligations under the general disposal of consent, and considering the business plan, we have determined that the asset transfer will contribute to the promotion and improvement of economic and social well-being of residents within the wider area. So it's deemed that those circumstances apply in terms of the asset transfer process. There's been quite a coordinated team of council departments involved in this, from communities, legal, finance and property services that have gone through that assessment process. I'd just like to thank those officers that have been involved in that process, because there's quite a lot of technical detail that has to go into that assessment. Some of the end results, so there's a draft heads of terms in Appendix B of the report, and the transition plan that I've referred to is at Appendix C as well for information. The alternative options to the proposal would be not to agree a transfer of the centre. However, I think it's important to note that Gedling Platform have been managing the site on a full repairing lease for roughly 20 years now. So this proposal seeks to maintain that current arrangement, and the longer term lease offers greater security of tenure as well for the Platform as a registered charity. So it does enable them to seek external funding opportunities for building improvements, which often require a minimum lease duration of 7 years. And therefore it offers, I suppose, added value in terms of community services to enhance the services that they may offer to the community, and also help to deliver some aspects of our Gedling Plan priorities. We could alternatively not consider the site for disposal, but given the location that the centre's in, an area of need, and considering the retention of that centre and the services and support it offers for people in the community, children, schools and wider family support organisations, that's not deemed a viable option. Alternative, we could offer the site on a freehold to Gedling Platform or under a separate type of lease or licence agreement. In terms of the sustainability of that, that's not really an option open for Gedling Platform in terms of their financial plans, certainly in terms of freehold. Certainly any other form of agreement would restrict their ability potentially to access funding as well in terms of the ongoing sustainability of the building. A further assessment that we've needed to undertake around the Community Asset Transfer is a consideration of the Subsidy Control Act 2022. What this involves is a need for us to calculate the potential value of the ongoing subsidy. So that involves a calculation where we look upon the market value of an annual rent of the property and consider that over the duration of the lease. So in this case, it would be 99 years. So the value of that subsidy over that 99-year period would be £891,000. So in terms of the Subsidy Control Act, that value exceeds the minimum financial assistance threshold. So what that means in practice is we have to undertake what's called a principles assessment to ensure that the subsidy can be applied in a lawful way. And Appendix D of the report shows the principles assessment, which we have undertaken in accordance with the Subsidy Control Act. And this deems that the asset transfer meets the criteria of the Act in terms of that. The final point is just around our assessment of equalities and carbon sustainability approaches. Appendix E and F show our assessments of those issues. And I think it's fair to say that the ongoing and future work of the Platform meets a range of needs in the community around young people, vulnerable adults, diverse communities. And so obviously these proposals support that wider equalities and diversity work that the Platform undertake. And the mantra of much of the Platform's work is around carbon sustainability. So they look to reuse and recycle materials for their scrap store and for their play activities. And part of their business plan is around a more environmental, sustainable management of the building, and obviously the lease offers them the opportunity to access grant funding that us as a local authority wouldn't be able to access in order to make those improvements to the building. So the recommendation of the report today is for Cabinet, in accordance with the Community Asset Transfer Policy, agrees to the transfer of Willerton Avenue Community Centre from the Council to Gedling Playform by way of a 99-year full repairing lease under a peppercorn rent arrangement, and also for Cabinet to authorise the Chief Executive to approve the terms of the lease.
Thanks, Lance, and similar to you, thank all the people that have been involved, because it's not been a 5-minute job, it's been a long while. And I think we also ought to record our thanks to, the previous team that ran that and the team that are now running it. There's a lot of good work going off on there. The only thing, I know we can't have any control over this, but there's a nice chunk of land at the side of it, that some of it, if possible, at some point, we could get some of that land that would go with the play for, and it would, the things it could offer could be quite a lot. So if we, officers-wise, members-wise, can keep an eye on it and see if we can price something out of the county council to see, but it's been much needed, and we ought to be proud of it, because the play forum is probably the only one that's left. Everywhere else has said, easy, tick it off, put it across here, we'll do away with it. But we've stuck with it, and there's been some good volunteers, both past and present, so I think it's a good job all round. Just seeing on the last bit there, authorises Chief Executive to approve the terms of the lease. Can the Cabinet just have a look at the terms just before the... Not that we're going to stop anything on that. Yeah, do that. Just so there's member involvement. Okay, any more comments? David?
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to comment on the play forum. As you say, in the past there was a whole network of play forums across the borough, across the county rather, and these have gradually diminished. I think pretty much that Gedling Play Forum is now unique. I think we ought to just acknowledge the range of activities that they do put on. They run play events for children and parents. They support the council's activities and agenda and our events programme. As you say, they're heavily involved in environmental work and in recycling and reuse. When you go down there, the scrap store, it's amazing the stuff they've recycled or use inventively, and stop going to landfill. And even involved in recent years with James Mellors in organising trips for disadvantaged children to the seaside. So I think it's unique, and it's certainly a great asset to the borough. And I think this is a good move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Contributes to the carbon footprint as well, doesn't it? Invisibly. Viv?
Yeah, just to thanks, Lance, for that really comprehensive report that you've provided. And I just want to echo what David's saying, what you've been saying, Leader. My experience of the Play Forum is the excellent work they do. It's not just about the children, it's the work they're doing with parents. And when we look now in our communities at early intervention with our families, which are non-existent, unfortunately, because of this government cutting early intervention services for our really needy families and children, what they provide in terms of supporting parents, in terms of parenting their children, looking at creative play, is just invaluable. So I just think it's an excellent organisation. Clearly for the green agenda, it's brilliant in terms of the recycling. And I'm really, really pleased that we've got the stability for them actually going forward. So well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Viv. Jenny?
Yeah, just echo what Viv and David have said. I think this is really good news. And thank everybody for the work that's been involved. As you say, Leader, it's been going on for quite some time. They do seem to be attracting some new membership and seem to be extending the range of what they offer, like teaching new skills. And as you say, importantly, they save lots of scrap from landfill and reuse and repurpose. If you go up there, it's a bit like an Aladdin's cave, and you could spend hours just looking around at the amazing different fabrics and other things that they've got inside. So this is really good news. I'm really pleased. You'd be hard pushed to find a more dedicated set of volunteers, I think. And the work they do across the borough, as Viv says, supporting our events and other things has been phenomenal. So It's really sad that they're the last one, but I'm really pleased that they're still there, and I wish them well, and I hope they go from strength to strength.
Catherine?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just to say that obviously this has been on the Council's agenda for quite some time, so it's really good to see that it's been brought to fruition. I'm really pleased for the Gedling Play Forum because obviously with a longer term lease it does give them the ability to be able to access external funding, and that'll only go to benefit the communities in the surrounding area and the families. It's obviously in line with the Council's objectives as well, and will benefit the carbon reduction strategy and obviously the equality and diversity and inclusion policy as well. So, but really it does change people's lives, and I think it's brilliant. Thank you. And thank you to all officers as well that have been involved.
Thanks, Catherine. And it offsets some of the damage caused by, I think we're well over 1,000 Sure Start centres that have been closed under this government. So, you know, although a lot of people won't realise what's happening with Gedling Play Forum and what it does, but it does well. If you've all said it, the officers have worked hard to get this through, and the benefit we're seeing in the young people that grow up having been those early years. I think it's wonderful when you shut the computer away, give them a cardboard box, give them some glue, and it's lovely. And you know, when you see it, that, or just let splash paint, you know, like they do at some of the churches. What do they have? They do a dirty church or something, and the kids just go berserk, don't they? And poor old vicar's going, "What are you doing with this parish room?" You know, but they enjoy it. Anyway, this was that's on page 17. So moved. It's been seconded. Do we agree? We are agreed. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 6, which is headed development in place. Is that the question name for you, Mike? Which we're going to do the, where are we? Biodiversity net gain. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I'm really pleased to present this report to Cabinet today, seeking approval of planning guidance on the implementation of biodiversity, a policy on biodiversity net gain. As evident in the cover report and the detailed analysis of the consultation responses, it's been complex, involving officers from the planning team. And I'd especially like to thank Graham Foster, our Principal Planning Policy Officer, for coordinating this key piece of work. The Environment Act 2021 amends the Town and Country Planning Act to require a minimum mandatory 10% biodiversity net gain to be sought on all qualifying developments. The requirement for major development took effect on the 12th of February, and for smaller sites, the requirement took effect earlier this month. There are exclusions for certain types of development, for example, householder development and developments proposing self-built dwellings. Biodiversity net gain is an approach to development that aims to leave the natural environment in a measurably better state than it was beforehand. This guidance seeks to add further detail to the requirements of the Environment Act 2021 in relation to achieving biodiversity net gain from the development of land. A consultation document was prepared called Interim Planning Policy Guidance on Biodiversity Net Gain. This was subject to a period of public consultation for 4 weeks in January. In recognition of the comments received through the consultation, it's now been renamed Guidance and its purpose clarified, which is to support the implementation of national policy on biodiversity net gain. As detailed in the report, a number of comments were of a supportive nature. The main issues raised are arguments for and against raising the target to 20% biodiversity net gain from a minimum of 10% set out in national legislation, concerns and questions about the status of the interim planning policy statement in terms of its weight in decision making, unnecessarily repeats government legislation and needs editing down. The guidance cannot be used to formulate new policy, which should be in the development plan. In this context, the focus should be on the emerging Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan, which will have a biodiversity net gain policy. Suggestions about local issues, which could be covered. Concerns about lack of control over the location of compensatory biodiversity net gain, which ought to be as close as possible to the development site. Points made about urbanised areas missing out if compensatory biodiversity net gain is provided in more rural parts of the borough. Proposals to include sites as priority locations for compensatory biodiversity net gain, other than those named in the interim planning policy statement, to include, for example, the River Trent and its tributaries in the vicinity of Colic. Concerns about the use of open spaces and playing fields as a location for BNG and potential conflicts that may arise. Specific responses about detailed wording, including the overarching principles, including whether they are consistent with the legislation. The need to avoid risk to aviation from BNG provision. Views about the need for carrying out an early review, and sufficient resources needing to be in place to ensure that BNG plans are adequately assessed as part of the planning application process. Comments received from all consultees have been carefully considered, and the analysis of each comment is included as Appendix 1. Where possible and appropriate, the guidance has been amended. We currently have no adopted development plan policy to require more than the statutory 10%. Prior to the implementation of the new regulations, our planning decisions did not require any biodiversity net gain to be provided. Any higher target will be considered through the emerging Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan and our future review of the Part 2 local plan. For now, it is important that we fully understand the practical implications of implementing the new statutory requirements before seeking to implement higher targets. The guidance includes reference to an early review as good practice emerges and in anticipation of the adoption of the local nature recovery strategy led by Nottinghamshire County Council. Work is also underway to establish an ecology officer post following recent approval of a budget by full council. This post will support the planning and PAS teams to implement and monitor requirements. Finally, I wanted to provide members with a brief overview of the actual guidance document. The primary purpose is intended to assist developers through the BNG aspects of the planning process. It includes guidance on measuring net gain through the DEFRA metric. So this is a spreadsheet used to measure BNG on site prior to development by measuring 3 types of habitat. So namely, that relates to semi-improved grassland, linear features, so for example hedgerows, and also watercourses. Where degradation of habitat is evident, the baseline will be the position as of January 2020. Guidance is also provided on information requirements to support a planning application. Guidance is provided on biodiversity mapping. The approach to securing BNG is also defined. So a key principle is to avoid adverse impacts on site, and if this cannot be avoided, take action in the following order. So firstly, if adverse effects cannot be avoided, mitigating these effects. Secondly, if these effects cannot be mitigated, habitat enhancement of on-site habitat. Thirdly, so far as there cannot be enhancement, create new habitat on site. Fourthly, so far as there cannot be creation, the availability of registered off-site credits. And fifthly, so far as off-site habitat enhancements cannot be secured, purchasing statutory biodiversity credits. Finally, the guidance sets out our approach to monitoring, which will be required for a 30-year period. Leader, I recommend that Cabinet approve the draft responses to the comments made during the consultation on the draft biodiversity net gain document set out in Appendix 1 and approve the Gedling Borough Council guidance on biodiversity net gain attached at Appendix 2 of the report. Thank you.
Right, Mark, thanks for that. Another comprehensive report, and one hell of a lot of work gone into that. No doubt in that. And there's some good responses. It was interesting. The friends of the Hobbits made no comment. So Marge will probably say something about that one.
Thank you, Leader. They've made no formal comment, but in their meetings they have discussed how positive this is going to be for the Hobbits going forward. So it's a shame that they didn't manage to make that response in time. Thank you.
Jenny.
Yes, thanks, John, and many thanks, Mike, for the comprehensive report. Can I echo Mike's thanks to Graham Foster for once again producing an excellent piece of work, and as you say, a substantial amount of time and effort's gone into it, the coordination of all the information that needs to be brought together. I'd like to thank all those who responded to the consultation as well, because again, Mike has said that some adjustments have been made to the report to make it more accessible. The guidance sets out the process for developers for formulating BNG at an early stage, which is important, so there's no doubt in what they need to supply in their applications. It's a mandatory requirement, and it'll take some time to bed in, which I think the report acknowledges. So clearly, along the way, there will undoubtedly be some adjustments as we find out how it actually works in practice, because reading it on a paper is very different to actually implementing it in real life. So, but developers will know what's required at an early stage. I don't want to say much more because I think it's all in the report, and Mike said it. Just one thing as a bit of a nuisance. There is a glossary at the back. Could you add, please, LNRS into the glossary, which is the Local Nature Recovery Strategy? I am a sad person, Chair, but I did look at the glossary, so, and it is not there.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Hollingsworth. I think that was an oversight and it should be included, so thank you for flagging that.
Good to his hand. Where are we, Viv? And then David.
Again, just to thank Mike, really comprehensive piece of work. And again, Gedling, we're such an inclusive council. We ask people, consultation is meaningful. We get consultation, people say things, we do things about it. And I just think that's really important. It's not that we listen to people's consultation and throw it in the bin. We actually do something with it. And I think it's evident here. But in terms of biodiversity, I mean, in terms of my portfolio, to be clear with our developers, to think about a future, to think about what Gedling's going to look like in 50, 60 years' time. And we're not going to be a concrete jungle, that we are going to have lots of open spaces. And it's going to be a pretty place to live, I think, is really important. So we're going to, so I think it can only be good. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Viv. David.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks, Mike, for the report. It does seem that the consultation has been helpful in improving. It does seem an easy document to read. And I've learned something. I didn't know there was such a thing as an RAF safeguarding zone, so I know something new now. There's a specific question, though. As Jenny says, it'll take some time to turn down, to settle down, rather. BNG's material planning consideration, if a development comes up without 10% gain, is that an automatic refusal?
Yes, it will be an automatic refusal. So there's a statutory requirement for the developer to provide a minimum of 10% biodiversity net gain. So that will be grounds to refuse planning permission, yes.
Thank you. Henry?
Yeah, I think this is a really good report. It's a brilliant report, so thank you, Mike. From a health and wellbeing perspective, I think it's a really good thing that we've got the biodiversity net gain in front of us, because obviously creating healthy communities, as in when you're building communities, you need to also create that open spaces that are actually available to the public to go and walk, exercise, etc., etc. But also from a wildlife and ecological point of view, I think it can only be a good thing. And I also welcome the fact that wherever possible, it is preferred that BNG net gain is done on site rather than off site. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. I just got one final nibble on there. It's probably for us as a cabinet and as a council and for officers. It's page 77, and I hadn't realised this. Woodland Trust, Borough's tree canopy cover is 15%. Which contrasts to an average of 38%. Is there any way, Mike, we can build this in a bit more in planning and things like that, that there's more trees planted? Is there any power we've got? I mean, we're doing our bit. I know we've planted loads of trees, but that's a significant deficit, isn't it? If we've got 15% canopy and we've got 38%. Yeah. No, not cider trees.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Clark. That's something that we would encourage. But in terms of this policy, well, in terms of the guidance which supports the new regulations, this is absolutely helpful in terms of encouraging more planting and the retention of planting as well. So I think this guidance to support the national approach is certainly helpful in terms of achieving those objectives.
Thanks for that, Mike. So I can ask Mike, Chief Executive, could perhaps put that on the list with the many other things for 20 million.
Well, I can
When it
add
appears,
to the list,
have a look at it, see if we can grab a few bob off that and put some trees in different places. But you're right, not on the side of roads. You don't need that, No. So anyway, if there's no further comment, on page 53, we've got recommendations there. There are 2 recommendations. I'll move those, seconded and agreed. Thank you. And with that, I think that brings us to the end of it, which is not too bad. 35 minutes. Yeah, no other items urgent. Thank you very much.